Hello children, this is Grandma Carla with more of Emily's Runaway Imagination, and we're reading chapter 8, The Hard Times Party, and I am with my granddaughter Hannah, and over here is another little granddaughter. This is Miss Joanna. She's a little sleepy. It's kind of late. And I've got grandchildren all around me, but these are the ones that are right here. The Hard Times Party. Mama was heartsick, just heartsick, when Daddy told her how little money he would get for his crops that year. The barn was full. The sheep grew long, thick wool. The hogs were fat. And what happened? The price of everything went way down, and all of Daddy's hard work earned scarcely enough money to see the Bartletts through the next year. To Emily, this meant half-soled shoes, dresses that would have to be let down a second time, practical Christmas presents. That would be the worst thing of all, practical Christmas presents. Mama, what will we do? Emily asked anxiously. We'll manage somehow, Mama answered with a sad smile. We always do. Just remember your pioneer ancestors. Their first winter in Oregon was so hard, some of them had to make clothes out of the tops of their covered wagons. Well, now we've been joined by Nathan. Can you get up there, Nathan? You want to see your face? Okay. By the tops of their covered wagons, Emily felt better. Twice let down dresses were better than clothes made out of covered wagon tops, which must have been stiff and scratchy. Times were hard for Grandpa, too. Farmers who had charged their shoes and overalls and sugar and spices often could not pay all their bills when their crops were sold. Yes, everybody in Pitchfork had to scrimp and pinch, and Emily knew there would be very little money to give to the library that winter. What she did not expect, however, was that in a year when people had no money for the picture show or for gasoline to go riding around in their automobiles, they came to the library. During that hard winter, there often were not enough books to go around. The state library sent 3 crates at a time instead of 1, but still no Black Beauty. Mama checked books in and checked them right out again. One raw, rainy afternoon, Emily was so afraid that there would not be any books left for the boy with the white flour sack that she selected a book for him and one for his sister and hid them until he arrived, cold and wet from his long walk down the railroad track. Now just think, Emily's thinking more about the little boy than she is about herself. Isn't that nice? And what did the ladies of Pitchfork do about the library? They decided to have a party, a hard times party in the Masonic Hall. They would charge 25 cents admission, proceeds to go to the library. Aren't hard times a funny thing to have a party about? Emily asked. Parties were for birthdays and Valentine's and Halloween, happy occasions. Mama smiled. Perhaps it is, but I think it is a nice idea. It is better to have some fun out of life as we go along than to feel sorry for ourselves. Emily wanted to have some fun out of life as she went along too, and she wanted a chance to wear her best winter dress, the red taffeta with the gathered skirt that Grandma made for her last year. Mama, could I go to the party this once? She asked. Usually, when Mama and Daddy went out in the evening, Emily spent the night with Grandma and Grandpa in their rooms upstairs over the store. She loved Saturday night in Grandpa's store because that was the night the loggers came to town. The store was crowded with big, noisy men in Macintosh. The counters were piled high with groceries that night, beans and coffee and great slabs of bacon and cheese. Cartons and cartons of food were carried off to the logging camps on Saturday night. And when Emily's bedtime came, Grandma sent her upstairs, where she did not have to go straight to bed the way she did at home. She sat in Grandpa Morse's chair and read the dictionary with its limp leather cover and its colored illustrations of different breeds of cattle and all of the flags in the world. Emily was willing to miss Saturday night at the store if she could go to the Hard Times party, and Mama finally said she could, just this once. Emily listened with a great interest when the ladies who came to the library talked about the party. They agreed to gather up all of the red and white checkered tablecloths in town for the tables, and they would serve baked beans, brown bread, and coleslaw. Just for fun, they would serve coffee from tin cans. This seemed appropriate to Hard Times, and the ladies on the cleanup committee would not have to wash coffee pots. They would throw the cans away. It all sounded like fun to Emily until Mama began to wonder what to wear. "Your gray silk," said Emily. "What else would Mama wear to a party but her best dress?" "But this is a Hard Times party," said Mama. "We are supposed to wear Hard Times costumes. I thought you knew that." Emily had not known. "What are Hard Times costumes?" "Your oldest and most ragged clothes," Mama explained. "The oldest thing that we can find." Emily was aghast. "What for?" she demanded. "For fun," said Mama. Fun? This was not Emily's idea of fun. Her idea of fun was dressing up in her best dress so that the ladies of Pitchfork would say, "Look at Emily Bartlett. Doesn't she look nice in her party dress?" No, Emily made up her mind that she was not going to wear any old ragged dress to the party. Never. And so one evening when Mama got out Daddy's oldest overalls and began to sew patches on them, Emily was most disapproving. Mama did not sew on blue denim patches cut from other pairs of old overalls. She sewed on pink and yellow and green flowery patches from the gayest scraps in the scrap bag, and she did not even sew them over holes. She sewed them any old place. Suddenly, Mama put down her sewing and burst out laughing. "Emily, I've had the most wonderful idea. I'm going to wash some gunny sacks and cut armholes and a neck hole in one for a blouse and make a skirt out of two more. And I'll make a belt out of, let's see, your daddy's socks pinned together with safety pins. And for a necktie, what shall I use for a necktie?" Emily was too horrified to answer. Mama going to a party in gunny sacks. What a perfectly horrible idea. "I know," Mama was delighted with her inspiration. "I'll save squash seeds and string them together for a necklace. And I'll braid my hair in 2 pigtails and tie them with bows of twine your father uses for sewing gunny sacks." This was getting worse and worse. Mama's beautiful black hair tied up with gunny sack twine. This time it was Mama's imagination that was running away with her. "And Emily," Mama went on, not even noticing Emily's disapproval, "do you know what I think would be terribly funny?" Emily was afraid to guess what Mama might think would be terribly funny. "I think it would be funny if you dressed up in a gunny sack too." Mama was delighted with her idea. "I have a feeling we would be the belles of the ball." A terrible feeling of rebellion rose up within Emily. She did not want to be funny. She did not want Mama to be funny. It was not dignified, and grown-ups should always be dignified. And as for being the belles of the ball, to Emily being the belle of the ball meant the time that she heard Mama tell about. It was when she first came out west to teach school and before she met Daddy. Mama had gone to a dance with the people she boarded with in the little town where she was teaching. She was a new girl in town, and what a whirl she had. All of the young men wanted to dance with Mama, but there was one tall and handsome and real gentleman who danced with her most of all, and Mama had a wonderful time that evening. But a few days later, it turned out that the tall, handsome gentleman was a horse thief who had to go to jail. Mama was very sorry to learn this, but she certainly had a story to write in her city cousins back east who had never danced with horse thieves. All this never would have happened if Mama had worn a gunny sack. "Well, we'll find some gunny sacks tomorrow," Mama said, as if Emily had agreed. "And you can wear one of my old stockings for a belt." "I won't," said Emily flatly. "Won't what?" asked Mama, surprised. "Won't wear any old gunny sack to the party," said Emily, "and I won't wear any old stocking for a belt either." "But Emily," Mama began. "Well, I won't," said Emily. "I just won't." "But Emily," protested Mama, "it would be so funny if we both appeared wearing gunny sacks." Emily did not want to cross Mama, but she would not wear a gunny sack to the party. Mama was not the only one in the family who had spunk. "Emily," said Mama, "if a bee came along right now, it would sting your lip." No bee was going to come along in the Bartlett's sitting room in the winter evening, but Emily pulled her lip in anyway. "But why, Emily?" asked Mama. It was impossible to explain to Mama about what it meant to be the belle of the ball, and that parties were for dressing up and looking beautiful. "Because," answered Emily, and had to remember not to let her lip stick out. Then Daddy spoke from the table, where he had been going over the bells. "Emily, you will wear what your mother tells you to wear, or you will spend the night with your grandparents." When Daddy had said something, he meant it. Mama looked thoughtfully at Emily. "If she is going to the party, she should have a good time. What do you want to wear, Emily?" "My red party dress," said Emily promptly. "All right," agreed Mama. "You bring it here, and I'll baste some patches on it." Mama still did not understand. "But Mama," said Emily, "I don't want patches on it. I want to wear it just the way it is. I want to dress up to go to the party." She wanted to be admired, not laughed at. "All right," said Mama with a sigh. "Have it your way." Then Emily felt terrible. She wished she could please Mama by wanting to wear a gunny sack to the party, but she could not. The day of the party, Emily helped Mama by tying bits of green thread around the handles of the silverware they were going to take so that they could tell their knives and forks and spoons from those of everyone else. Nothing was said about costumes until after supper, when Mama took down her long black hair and braided it into 2 pigtails, which she tied with twine. "Oh, Emily," said Mama with a laugh, "don't look so disapproving. Run along and put on your party dress." So Emily took her best winter party dress out of the wardrobe in the downstairs bedroom and put it on. It was a little tighter around the chest than she remembered, but she turned and twirled in front of the mirror in Mama's bird's eye maple dresser and was pleased with herself as far down as she could see. Then she took her Mary Janes out of the wardrobe, but when she squeezed her feet into them, they turned out to be so short she could not even wiggle her toes. Emily did not know what to do. People had been telling her that she was growing like a weed, and it was pleasant to know that this was much closer to being grown up, but it was most uncomfortable to have it happen on a particular night. Then Mama, wearing her gunny sacks, came gaily into the bedroom, where she too turned and twirled in front of the mirror, just as if she were dressed in the latest fashion, right out of a Butterick pattern book. Daddy, looking like a walking rag bag, came in and grinned at himself in the mirror. He put his hands on Mama's waist and lifted her off the floor. "You don't weigh enough to fill even one gunny sack," he told her. "Do I look nice?" Emily asked. Mama and Daddy exchanged a quick glance that Emily did not understand. "Very nice," answered Emily. Emily did not like to mention her shoes, especially when times were so hard and there was no money for more Mary Janes, but they were pinching unbearably. "Mama, I think my shoes are too small." Mama knelt and felt Emily's toes. "Why, they are way too short," she agreed. "Your toes are pushing right out against the end. I'm afraid you will have to wear your everyday shoes." "Oh, Mama," Emily felt that she could not wear scuffed old Oxfords with a party dress, but there was nothing else to do. She had no other shoes. "Emily," said Mama suddenly, "how would you like to wear a pair of my old shoes? You could wear your Oxfords until we got there and then change." Would Emily like to wear a pair of high-heeled shoes to the party? Would she? Of course she would. The shoes would not fit, even though Mama's feet were small and Emily's were rather large, but even so, she would be the envy of all the girls there. "Oh, Mama, could I really?" Emily asked eagerly. Sometimes Mama let her try on the high-heeled shoes, but to get to wear them, actually wear them, it would help make up for Mama's going out in public in a gunny sack dress. And so the Bartletts set out for the Masonic Hall with an extra pair of Mama's old shoes in one paper bag and their silverware marked with green thread in another. As soon as they arrived, Emily took off her own shoes and slipped into Mama's. To Emily's relief, Mama hurried upstairs to help the ladies set the tables without taking off her coat. Emily sat down on a folding chair at the side of the hall to look around her. Other boys and girls were running and sliding on the dance floor and jumping off the stage, but Emily, in Mama's high-heeled shoes, felt too grown up for such childishness. June was there, running and sliding with the others. She was wearing an old midi, the skirt she tore one time when she tried to climb a barbed wire fence, and a pair of mismatched shoes. One a high brown shoe that laced, and the other a Mary Jane so old that the patent leather was cracked. She looked ragged and untidy, but knowing June, Emily decided she probably did not care. Emily looked around at the other costumes, the things that had been pulled out of trunks and rag bags. Moths certainly had been busy in Pitchfork. Old-fashioned trousers, hobble skirts that had gone way out of style, patched and faded overalls and house dresses, skirts made out of flour sacks. One lady wore a man's straw hat trimmed with weeds. Another had used brown flour to powder her nose. Everyone gasped when the barber arrived with his head bandaged and his arm in a sling, but it turned out that the bandages were part of his costume. Then Mr. Archer, the banker, arrived with a tomato soup can tied on top of his head like a happy hooligan in the funny papers, and Emily could not help laughing. He looked so funny. Nobody in the whole crowd looked nice, except for Arlene Twitchell, the prettiest girl in town, who had a few pink patches basted to her best dress. She did look pretty, but in contrast to all of the funny costumes, she also looked just plain stuck up. And then Emily knew she herself had done the wrong thing. She was going to look stuck up too. Mama had been right. Sometimes it was fun to make people laugh. Emily pulled her feet as far back under the chair as she could and buttoned her coat up under her chin. She did not want people to think that she was too stuck up to wear a Hard Times costume. Bertie Young, the barber's son, skated across the floor. "Hello, Emily, you want to smell my haircut?" Emily inhaled deeply as he leaned over. Carnation this time." June came skidding across the floor. "Hello, Emily," she said, stopping in front of her cousin. "How come you don't take your coat off?" "I don't feel like it," answered Emily truthfully. "Come on," coaxed June. "Let's see your costume." Emily did not quite know what to answer, but she knew that if she did not say something, June would persist. I didn't wear a costume," she admitted unhappily. "Why not?" asked June. "Because," answered Emily. This was not enough for June. "Because why?" "Because I didn't feel like it." Emily wished June would go back to sliding and leaving her alone. "I'll bet you were too stuck up," accused June. "I am not." "Then take off your coat and come sliding with the rest of us," said June. "I can't," said Emily, searching for an answer. "I'm wearing high heels." "High heels?" squeaked June, quite plainly impressed. Golly, she bent over and peered under the chair at Emily's feet. "And you aren't spoofing either. Hey, kids, come here. Emily's wearing high heels." Emily found herself surrounded by an interested crowd of ragamuffins who made her feel more dressed up and uncomfortable than ever. The boys scoffed at her for wearing silly old high heels, but the girls were impressed. Their mothers would never let them wear high heels, not until they were as old as Arlene Twitchell, who was so old that she was almost as good as a grown-up. Some of the girls, Emily could see, were thinking, "That stuck-up Emily Bartlett." More and more people arrived, hobos and Charlie Chaplins, and ladies gowned in whatever their rag bags had to offer. Almost everyone in Pitchfork had come to the party. which meant a lot of 25-cent pieces for the library. Mama came downstairs in her gunny sack dress, which everyone admired and laughed at. Emily felt worse and worse. Then Mrs. Wardy Thompson sat down at the piano on the stage and pounded out some good loud chords to attract the attention of the crowd. The boys and the girls stopped sliding and everyone was quiet. "Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye," shouted Uncle Avery, the mayor, who was wearing an old baseball uniform. "You tell 'em," yelled the barber. "Get ready for the grand march," directed Uncle Avery, "around the hall until the judges decide which couples are the best dressed of this crowd of fashionably dressed citizens." "Hooray!" shouted the barber. "Let's go." Mrs. Wardy Thompson struck up the march, the same one that she always played for the crowning of the Queen of the May. Dum, dum, da, dum. 2 by 2, the crowd began to form a procession. "Come on, Emily," said June. "You can march with me." Emily drew back. "I think I would rather watch." "Now, Emily," Mama spoke firmly, "you wanted to come to the party. Now be a good sport." "But, Mama," said Emily in a desperate whisper, "I'm too dressed up. Everyone will think I'm stuck up." Mama looked as if she were amused at something. "I wouldn't worry about that if I were you," she said. "Take off your coat and go along with June." Emily could see that Mama expected to be obeyed. There was nothing to do but shed her coat and join the marchers. Let people see her in her best dress and high heels. There was nothing she could do about it now. She took only one step before she slipped on the polished floor. She had to clutch June to regain her balance. Emily curled her toes under as hard as she could to make the shoes fit better. Walking was not easy, but she stumped along in her curled up toes the best that she could, clinging to June's arm for support. Her ankles bowed out, and when she tried to straighten them, they caved in. It was a good thing that June was such a sturdy cousin. Around the Masonic Hall went Emily and June to Mrs. Wardy Thompson's dum-dum-da-dum. Ahead of them marched Mama and Daddy, smiling and gay. Emily was too busy trying to stand up in her high heels to join in the laughter of the crowd. There was one good thing, though. Nobody could say that she was acting stuck up. In front of the judges on the stage, Mama paused and curtsied while Daddy bowed. Emily, anxious to do the right thing, managed a teetery curtsy while June propped her up. Everyone laughed and applauded, which made Emily feel much better because now she was part of the fun. Her toes ached from being curled up so hard, but that did not matter. Emily and June circled the hall once more before one of the judges whispered to Mrs. Wardy Thompson, who finished the march and then thumped out, "Shave and a haircut, 2 bits," for good measure, to show that the music really had come to an end. Uncle Avery held a conference with the judges before he turned to the crowd and shouted, "Hear ye, hear ye, hear ye. The judges have reached a decision." "Hooray!" shouted the crowd. "First prize," shouted Uncle Avery, and waited for the crowd to be quiet before he went on. "First prize goes to Mr. and Mrs. Dutch Beasley for being the best dressed bride and groom in Yamhill County." There was a wild applause from the crowd, and Mrs. Beasley, who was wearing an old curtain for a wedding veil and carrying a bouquet of beets and carrots, stepped forward to receive an envelope from the judges. "And second prize," shouted Uncle Avery, "goes to the younger generation, Emily Bartlett, who has grown out of her dress before growing into her shoes, and her cousin June, who offered her such strong support." There was more wild applause. Emily was astonished. Had she really grown out of her party dress? She must have, if Uncle Avery said so, and if she won a prize. At the risk of losing her balance, she bent over to look at him, at her hem, and saw that it was much too far above her knees, and her sleeves, now that she thought about them, they were too tight, and the seam that was supposed to be at her waist, it was closer to her ribs. Of course, the dress had felt tight across her chest when she put it on, and she could not see much of herself in the mirror at home. Why, she had never looked at her dress at all. She had looked funny like the rest of the crowd, and Mama knew it all the time. "We won the prize," whispered June. "Don't just stand there. Come on." The two girls somehow reached the stage where the judge handed them an envelope. "What is it?" asked Emily, still a little dazed. June tore open the envelope and pulled out 2 $1 bills. "Look," she said with awe, 2 whole dollars. 1 apiece. Emily could scarcely believe such good fortune. A whole dollar. Emily had never before had a whole dollar at one time. Her sitting still money now added up to over $1, but it was all in nickels and not in one piece like this dollar. "What are you going to do with yours?" asked June. "Buy Mama a Christmas present," answered Emily. June looked curiously at her cousin. "How come you said you didn't wear a costume?" "I was just spoofing," answered Emily airily. "I wanted it to be a surprise." A man with a violin and another with a cornet joined Mrs. Wardy Thompson, and the music for dancing began. Emily tottered over to the chairs along the wall and uncurled her toes. In spite of the excitement, she began to feel tired and sleepy. Not that she would have mentioned it to anyone. But it was way past her bedtime. Other boys and girls were beginning to lie down in the folding chairs, but Emily resolutely watched the dancers and swallowed her yawns until Mama came over and whispered, "Why don't you take a little nap?" Emily nodded, and Mama made her as comfortable as it was possible to make her on 3 folding chairs. She put Emily's coat under her head for a pillow and spread her own coat over her. This dance was called a foxtrot, which was funny because Emily was sure foxes did not trot this way. Emily struggled to keep her eyes open just a little while longer. As she watched the tattered and patched knees of the dancers moving past, it suddenly occurred to her that she now had more than enough money for Mama's egg beater. She had enough money to buy something else too, and Emily knew exactly what she was going to buy: a book for the library. She would ask Mama to send away to Portland for Black Beauty, and when it came, she would sit right down and read it herself. If it was as good as Muriel said it was, she would read it 3 times, one right after another, and then she would give it to the library. Mama would write in the front, "A gift from Emily Bartlett," and the library would have 1 more book. Emily gave up trying to keep her eyes open, and as she drifted off into sleep, her last thought was, maybe times weren't so hard after all. Not when a girl like Emily Bartlett could afford to present a book to the library. That is the end of the Hard Times Party, which was chapter 8. Let's look at the pictures. Here's a picture of the shoes that Emily was going to wear, and they were going to drink coffee out of cans, remember? So they were all dressed up for the party. And here is a picture of Emily in the dress that was way too short, and her mom and dad laughing at her because they knew she had on too short a dress, and she fit into the party, and she didn't even know that she was fitting into the party because she was wearing a dress that was too small for her. And that is the end of chapter 8. And next time we will read the last chapter. And this is Grandma Carla with Hannah Marie, and I love you.